Good morning. Good morning, Unity on the Bay. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Juan. I'm one of the ministers of Unity on the Bay, our spiritual community here in Miami, Florida. And Reverend Chris and I have been coming in on Wednesdays and Fridays during Lent to read from the Lenten booklet by Unity Worldwide Headquarters to just share with you our thoughts on the daily devotional that we're invited into during Lent. So I'm just going to check myself out on Facebook so that I can share it. Of Unity on the Bay. There we go. And so, welcome. Also, want to wish you a really transformative and powerful Holy Week. We are in the midst of it, having started with Palm Sunday. Yesterday, we had what I believe to be a lovely Holy Week communion experience commemorating the Last Supper. And we're looking forward to sharing our different Easter programming with you. We have an Easter beach meditation at 7:30 a.m. and we have our services at 9:30 and 11:15, all of them Eastern time. And a really wonderful opportunity to connect and just be in the energy of uh, our own evolution and our own resurrection story. Oh, hey, Pam. I'm so grateful that you enjoyed the Thursday service and experience. I saw you commenting late last night when I came home, and I just really appreciate the support and the way that you have allowed these experiences to support you and to make you feel connected. It's really, really wonderful. Well, today is Good Friday, and usually a day where, many Christian communities really focus in on the crucifixion story, right? The crucifixion of Jesus as he continued to have his own journey unfold. And what I appreciate about this Lenten booklet, which I mean, you could still get, although, uh, Saturday and Sunday would be the last two readings that you would have for it. But this really wonderful book, Release and Renew 2022, A Spiritual Practice for Lent, has really invited us to look at what it is that we want to release and what do we want to invite in during this Lenten season. And I love that on Good Friday, the day of commemorating the crucifixion, the affirmation is I release the shadows of grief and sorrow. Because my understanding of life is that many, many, many times that there is a crucifixion, there is grief and sorrow and hurt and pain attached to it. Um, but I also understand that sometimes the human condition makes us want to stay in that place. What is that joke? Somebody said, get somebody needs to get off the cross. We need the wood, right? Like, we sometimes want to stay in that place. And today's reading really invites us to not be attached to that place. And so, what I'd love to do is I'm going to read to you the devotional reading for today, and then we can have a little conversation around it. And so, for Good Friday, April 15th, it says, "I release the shadows of grief and sorrow." In Jesus' final moments of his human journey, as told in John 19, verse 30, he said, "It is finished." The final days of our Lenten journey offer an opportunity to reflect on our spiritual growth. Such reflection shines a light on the blessings that we have received, gives of friendship, love, understanding, and support. It also reveals those places where we may have fallen short, where perhaps we withheld many of the same gifts we received. As these are revealed, a choice is available. I can cling to the grief and sorrow I feel over missteps I have made, or I can humbly accept the learning offered and draw closer to the all loving presence of God within me through their release. This indwelling presence knows no misstep and finds no fault. It simply pours forth, dispelling shadows and lighting the path ahead. As I release the shadows of grief and sorrow, I can say to the hold they once had, it is finished. If I say, surely, and from Psalm chapter 139, verse 11 and 12, if I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light around me become night, even the darkness is not darkness to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you. And so, good morning, Angelica and Margarita, Maggie, and Nettie, and all those that have joined us. Um, and so, for me, this reading really invites us to just check in on where we're at with grief and with sorrow. And it specifically talks about, looking at where we may have had some missteps or made some mistakes along the way, and how we can sort of pile on ourselves grief and sorrow and shame, even as part of that process. But I think it also goes deeper into just a greater understanding of the place of grief and sorrow in us. So I really have been sitting with the idea of the shadows of grief and sorrow. And I want to share with you the two ways in which I feel um, what it's representing. The first thing I recognize for me is that it talks about grief and sorrow, but it talks about the shadow of grief and sorrow. And it reminded me of the Rumi poem, "The Guest House." And I want to read it to you this morning. This is from Rumi, the Sufi poet. This being human is a guest house, every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house, empty off its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And I feel that, I love that poem actually, and I love Rumi. And I feel the reason why I connected to the guest house with this reading is that I don't necessarily think the grief and the sorrow are the issue, right? Like grief and sorrow are emotions and feelings that can come up in moments of loss, in moments of challenge and difficulty. And they themselves, as the poem says, you know, um, have a place within our own processing, have a place within our guest house, and we can welcome them in. For me, it's looking at how I have created a shadow around it, right? So when I think about the shadow of grief and sorrow, I think, let me bring that into the light, because a lot of times grief and sorrow are things that we don't want to feel, or we don't think it's spiritual to feel, right? Like we think that there's a different way. And part of the issue with not letting grief and sorrow enter the house is that it'll keep knocking, right? Like it'll keep knocking at the door. It just won't go away. It'll want to come in. And so what would it look like if we just opened the door to it, allow ourselves to be in their presence, and through that, bring the grief and sorrow to the light? Because in order for us to heal, we have to bring light to the situation. In order for us to heal, we have to be aware of where the healing needs to take place. And so that's the first thing that captured me about the Lenten reading is really stepping into a place of no longer sending my grief and sorrow to the shadows, but welcoming them in, bringing light to them. So trying to understand it, trying to allow it, and then moving into the second part of the way that I understood the reading, which, again says, as I release shadows of grief and sorrow, I can say to the hold they once had, it is finished. See, the issue for that I think is raised is that grief and sorrow aren't the difficulty or the problem, quote unquote. It's when we become so attached to them. It's like when we cling to them, when we close the door behind them. They came in to the as a guest to our house, and somehow we've locked them in there with us. And they think that they've done their job. They think that they've processed what they've needed to process, and we still won't let them leave. We want to cling to it, and as challenging and difficult as it may be to think that sometimes we are attached to the pain, attached to the grief and sorrow, I'm sure that many of us have experienced just that. That um, as funny as it can be, right? We do cling to it. And so, what are some of the shadows and some of the grief and some of the hurt and some of the pain that we may be attached to at this very moment? So much so that we've forgotten what it may feel like to not have them be the guest in our house in this time. And what can we do today to really honor, welcome in the grief and the sorrow in a way that welcomes them, but doesn't make them the house itself, doesn't attach me to them in the way that I can experience it, recognize that it's just a part of the human process, that there are spiritual gifts that may be revealed as a result of it, and then letting it run its course without me having to control it. And I just wonder if some of you have experienced some of that. And Pam, my heart is with you, and uh, as you're sharing about feeling sad today, you know, um, you have a 9-year-old son, and I have to sometimes say to him, it's okay to feel sad, right? It's okay to feel bad. The question is, can it serve you? And if you feel like it's serving you in this moment and you can just move through the process, then just be open to the gift that may be revealed as a result of you allowing it. And don't keep yourself in that place longer than it needs you to hold it. Don't shame ourselves for the sorrow, the sadness, all the emotions, really, like all the feelings. Like there's no shame in it. It's all part of our processing. And to be able to ask ourselves the question, has it served, its purpose? Am I feeling any attachment to it? Can I release it? And the moment that we are able to release it, I think it's Khalil Gibran who says that, sorrow just carves out a greater space in your heart for love to come in. And that is what happens when we are able to finally release all of that deeper hole that it's created within us is now more open to being filled by all the other stuff that we would want to receive in our lives. And I just want to end by sharing the affirmation for tomorrow, which says, I renew myself in the serenity of silence. And so the releasing of the shadow creates the space for a renewal. And I trust that this week you can experience all of it. CJ, thank you so much. I needed to hear it too. And Mary, where Chris and I keep talking about just how great this Lenten booklet has been. Give a shout out to Unity World Headquarters, Unity Village, the publication arm of the Unity movement, who created this, and some other wonderful booklets that are on their way. Oh, the word for Lent. Well, we'd have to see. But thank you for sharing the idea, Mary. And we definitely have been leaning more and more on these wonderful booklets from UWH. So who knows? But I leave you now, just thanking you for being part of this journey with us. Again, I invite you to continue to just be in this Lenten experience of releasing and renewal, and that you allow this not only Holy Week, but especially Easter to be a turning point for you in how you perceive your own resurrection, your own renewal that is taking place within you. So thank you again, everyone. I so appreciate you, and I look forward to the other ways in which we will be connecting. Take care. Bye bye.